everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Bull Take Scouting Podcast. Today, we're going to be previewing the college football playoff, which will be on December 31st, that being this Friday. First game is number 1 Alabama versus number 4 Cincinnati. Second game is number 2 Michigan versus number 3 Georgia. I always love the college football playoff because not only is it the pinnacle of college football, but you also get to watch so many NFL draft prospects go up against each other. And so we're going to format this episode as breaking down the top draft prospects on each of these teams, starting with the Alabama-Cincinnati game. And then at the end, stay tuned for some predictions as we reveal our picks for who's going to be advancing to the national championship game. So Alex, you want to go ahead and tell us who you think is the top NFL draft prospect on Alabama?
Alabama's kind of one. Evan Neal, definitely the best NFL draft prospect on Alabama. He's pretty much dominant on the offensive line. He's 6'5", 350 pounds.
I think he's 6'7".
6'7", you're right. 6'7", 350 pounds. He's a dancing bear. He moves very well for his size, and he's got a nasty mean streak. He'll pancake guys all the time. Just an awesome prospect to watch.
Neal might actually have the best size athleticism combination that I've really ever seen, maybe even at any position. I think Evan Neal is one of the 5 best prospects in this whole draft. I think you can play him either left tackle or right tackle, depending on what you want. He does get caught by speed rushers sometimes because, naturally he's given up so much agility to them. Not that he's not agile, but he's 150 pounds heavier than some of these guys. But overall, Evan Neal is really just a stone wall in pass protection. Definitely has the lateral agility to get out in his kick slide deep enough to seal the edge. And he's an absolute force in the run game. As you can imagine, he absolutely moves people. I think Evan Neal is going to shine against Cincinnati. And I would say the second best NFL prospect is not even that far behind him on Alabama. Jameson Williams, we already talked about him in our wide receiver rankings breakdown last week. So if you want a deeper analysis on his game, head over there. But Jameson Williams is an electric deep threat with really great speed for Alabama.
Yeah, Jameson Williams, speed kills is the name of the game. And then one of the other guys that I really liked going into last year, Christian Harris, and he's a guy that I thought would be, in the first round conversation. It doesn't seem like he is. But I thought coming into this year, he was still really raw, but showed a ton of potential. And watching that Alabama tape, I was still really impressed with his tape.
Yeah, I think Harris has really great natural athletic skills, and that really serves him well in man coverage. He's absolutely got the quickness and the fluidity to turn and run with both running backs and tight ends. So he's really not had the year we were expecting. I think they brought in Henry To'o to be that middle linebacker, play calling on the defense, so that they could have Christian Harris just read and react and be free to move around the football field. But I don't think he's really embraced that quite enough in Alabama's second level. I wonder whether or not he declares for the NFL draft. He definitely could declare and maybe go in the second round range, or he could go back to school and work himself into the first round next year. And another guy that I think will be a high draft pick on Alabama's defense is Jordan Battle, the safety. Battle has really all the physical and athletic skills you look for in the safety position. He's got great size, great length, great quickness, great speed. I really, really like him in man coverage. I think that he can be one of the best man cover safeties at the next level. He's got all the athletic skills to be able to turn and run and mirror running backs and tight ends. I just have really a big concern with him is that I just don't think he's willing against the run game. I don't see him go downhill quickly to help against the run. He really seems like the type of safety that's going to be elite against the pass, but just won't offer you much against the run, which is why for me he has a late or early second round grade. I really can't give a first round grade to a guy that I don't see being willing to go help in run support.
Yeah, I'm a little bit lower on him, about a mid-second. His tackling really concerns me. A lot of the times I see him wrapping around the shoulders, and that's just not going to get it done at the NFL level. So I'll definitely need to see his tackling improve. Now I think we can move on to Cincinnati, who definitely a very talented team. Kosta, who do you think is the best NFL draft prospect from Cincinnati?
I got to go with Ahmad Gardner, nicknamed Sauce, and because he's that guy at the cornerback position. He's been locking down wide receivers his whole career at Cincinnati, and Ooh, this Alabama challenge is going to be one that's really going to be looked at by NFL scouts. If you look at his physical profile, he's got so much height and so much length. You'd want him to pack on more muscle, but on top of those measurables, he's got really good athleticism. He's got the fluidity to flip his hips without losing anything in transition, the quickness to mirror wide receivers. He might be a tick slower than you'd like in terms of deep speed. And that's where I think that's going to be really interesting to see how he matches up against Jameson Williams, because I think that they have the potential to expose each other, and that Gardner's a really physical cornerback. I think he's really smart with being physical, but not enough to draw a flag. And Jameson Williams is a guy that I think doesn't have as much strength as you'd like him to have. My primary concern with him is adjusting to physicality at the NFL level. So I'm interested to see how he handles the really physical press coverage of Ahmad Gardner. And then can Gardner withstand Jameson Williams' speed deep? I think that Williams versus Gardner is really maybe the best matchup between two players in this whole college football playoff. These guys are both, I think, mid-first round talents, in my opinion. I really like both of them.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think this matchup might be the most intriguing from a scouting perspective. I mean, if Sauce Gardner can hold down Jameson Williams, I think you might really see him shoot up draft boards and be potentially in contention for that cornerback one spot with some injury concerns with Derek Stingley.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that Gardner is just such a good NFL prospect that I have just outside the top 10. And man, if he were to have that kind of performance against Jameson Williams, he really could vault himself maybe even into the top 10. And another guy that I think is going to be drafted pretty high out of Cincinnati's tough defense is Magi Sanders, the defensive end. I really like the burst and the bend and the speed that he brings around the edge. I think that he's got to improve more in pass rush technique. I was a little disappointed to see what I thought was a lack of improvement between 2020 and 2021. I really liked Sanders last year, and I thought he'd end up being a first-round talent in my eyes. I still have him as an early second round or early to mid-second rounder, which is what I had him as last year, and he opted to go back to school. But he's gonna have his work carved out for him against Alabama's offensive line, especially if he's lining up on Evan Neal's side. So I'm excited to see how he's able to work on Alabama.
Yeah, and definitely another intriguing name to watch is Cincinnati's quarterback Desmond Ritter. I know we haven't been the biggest fans of Desmond Ritter, but I mean, this is going to be some stiff competition for him against that Alabama defense. And I mean, if he can make some plays, that should shoot his stock up NFL draft boards.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really think that he's going to be a guy who's drafted in the first round to be a franchise quarterback. He might be a better college football quarterback than an NFL quarterback, notably because of his lack of really accuracy overall. I don't think he's a natural thrower of the football, but this is the biggest stage for him to prove everyone wrong.
Yeah, and I think we can get moving on to the second matchup now, and we'll start talking about Michigan. And I mean, Aiden Hutchinson from Michigan, extremely, extremely impressive. And we had him as a second-round grade going into last season's draft, and then we were kind of surprised that he decided to opt to go back to school. And I mean, he made a great decision. He's, in contention for, a top 3 player in this draft. He's extremely powerful. He's got great length. I mean, his arms are so long. He creates such good separation between himself and the offensive lineman. He shows a good variety of pass rush moves that are very effective. I mean, he's just pretty much the whole package at a defensive end.
I absolutely love Hutchinson. And, as you said, I just thought he was kind of a second-round talent coming into the 2021 NFL draft. He went back to school, and then throughout the college football season, I didn't get to be watching Michigan every week, but people were absolutely buzzing about his NFL draft potential, and I couldn't wait to get into that tape. Got the chance to do that about a week ago, and wow, I was blown away by how much he improved. I think he got bigger, he got stronger, he got way more technically refined. Now you see a guy who can convert speed to power. He's got just so much power to be able to drive back the offensive lineman. And he's got a great set of tools in terms of pass rush moves. He's got great handwork to be able to beat the offensive lineman. And what might actually be his best trait is how relentless he is. He's got a motor that goes on for days. If he's not beating you from the start of the rep, like he very much can, he can get that sack at the end of the rep by coming back to the quarterback. Aiden Hutchinson really is a special player. And there's another defensive end, though, at Michigan, too, that has a lot of NFL draft potential. So I'll let you talk about David Ojaba, his teammate, for a sec.
Yeah, I mean, David Ojaba similar to Aiden Hutchinson. I think they both have really good hand technique, really good pass rush ability. Ojaba was more the outside linebacker. He's about 250. He shows good promise in coverage, I think, especially when he drops into his zone. I think he does a good job, noticing when guys are coming into his zone, leaving his zone, and he shows decent ability to bat the ball down out of the air. So I like his ball skills. He's not Aiden Hutchinson, but he's a very, very good, I'd say mid to late first round draft prospect.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting how different Hutchinson and Ojabo is, and that makes it so difficult to game plan against Michigan's offensive line. Is that you've got two completely different profiles, but they're both really good NFL draft prospects. Ojabo will just fly around the edge. He's much lighter than Hutchinson, but he's got even better athleticism, better bend, better speed, better flexibility to get to the quarterback on the outside shoulder of his blocker. And as you said, he can even drop back in coverage. He's a really special athlete, and he's pretty raw in my opinion. But I think sky's the limit for David Ojabo. I would like to see him get more technically refined. I know you just said that you're pretty high on his pass rushing prowess in terms of technique, but I think he's still pretty raw in that aspect and could improve some bit. But it was his first season starting at Michigan, so there's no surprise there.
I think a guy in the back end of the Michigan defense and Dax Hill, definitely impressive safety prospect. I love his blitzing ability, super quick. He knows how to get really skinny, shoot through the offensive line. He can blitz even through the middle and off the edge. He's definitely super effective, gets some sacks, a good tackler, and I do like his coverage ability as well.
Yeah, I actually have a first round grade on Daxton Hill. I really, really like Hill. He might not be the biggest guy. I think if you compare him to Jordan Battle, he gives up a lot in terms of size, but he can still stand out in man coverage in the NFL, in my opinion. I think he's got, first of all, a lot of experience in it. You see Michigan lining him up in man coverage on almost every down. He's got so much quickness and fluidity to turn and run. He's got a lot of understanding of technique and leverage and playing man coverage. I don't know if you want to put him on NFL tight ends too often because of that lack of size, but man, the NFL has so many really good receiving running backs, and I think that Daxton Hill can almost eliminate a lot of them at the next level. And then against the run, he's really good too. He's got so much range because he's such a fast player, really intelligent to read and react to the play, solid tackler too. I like Hill better than Battle, actually, and I have a first round grade on Hill. I think he's a really intriguing prospect that we're going to be hearing his name getting called on Friday, blowing up some plays behind the line of scrimmage, making that tackle from 10 yards out. I really like Hill.
Yeah, I agree with what I've seen so far. I think Hill's probably my second safety prospect, obviously beside Kyle Hamilton. I think he's a little bit more all around better than Jordan Battle. I think Battle's a little bit more physical in man coverage. Obviously, he's a little bit bigger than Hill, but Hill is a much better tackler in my opinion, and I think his play in the run game will translate much better to the NFL level.
Yeah, and I want to throw out one last name for Michigan. Christopher Hinton, the defensive tackle, is a guy that we really like. We've been actually talking to him personally. We hope to get him in for an interview after his college career ends at Michigan, be that this year or next year. But Hinton's a guy with a really great combination of size and athleticism. I think he's got a lot of ability to stack and shed and be really good against the run, but a lot of pass rushing upside with the athleticism he provides.
Yeah, and he's a guy that you see getting double teamed, and that's impressive. That says a lot for a guy that shares the defensive line with both Aiden Hutchinson and David Ojabo. So, I mean, he might not be a stat patter, but he's definitely super effective and another dominant force on that Michigan defensive line. And I think we can move now to the team that both of us have enjoyed thoroughly watching this film of, and that would be the Georgia Bulldogs. And Kosta, I'll let you answer this question first. Who is your favorite NFL draft prospect, and who do you think is the best NFL draft prospect on this Georgia defense?
My highest graded Georgia Bulldog is Nakobe Dean, linebacker. I absolutely love Nakobe Dean. I think he's just such a smart player and such a fast player too. And when you have both those traits, that the sky's the limit in terms of NFL potential because he can see so many things on the football field. He reads the play so well, both against the pass and the run, and he absolutely has the athleticism for his body to be able to react on what his mind sees. He can absolutely fly from sideline to sideline. Really good in man coverage too. Great instincts against the run and the pass. I think Nakobe Dean is really just a 3-down linebacker with so much value. He's even a pretty good pass rusher too. I think that if you refine his technique even more, he can really be an impactful pass rusher at the next level. He might not be the biggest, he might not be the longest, but he's got Pro Bowl potential, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was also going to say Nicole Redeen, and we did not talk about this beforehand. He is, like you said, he is so quick. And the thing that really jumped off the screen to me was how good he is as a pass rusher. And you said he has a lot of technique to still be refined, but he's so quick. He gets by those offensive linemen so fast. I think he can really time the snap very well. And that, that goes along with his instincts, his football IQ. He does a great job of getting skinny, just slipping by the offensive linemen and not even allowing them to get their hands on him. I think at times I saw a little bit of grabbiness in pass coverage, but that's not really too big of an issue for me. I mean, that's going to get coached out of you a little bit at the NFL level, and that's kind of just nitpicking. I think he's a ferocious tackle and a ferocious pass rusher. He plays the game with great intensity, and he shows, like you said, a good ability to, when he's dropping back into coverage, he knows. Again, he can pick up the running back in man coverage, and he can know when guys are coming in and out of his zone in zone coverage. And now I think we can move on to a extremely impressive Georgia. I'm going to call him an athlete. He's defensive tackle Jordan Davis at 6'6", 340 pounds. And we mentioned Evan Neal as a dancing bear. Jordan Davis is also a dancing bear. I mean, he moves very well for his size.
Jordan Davis is a massive man. I mean, you look at that defensive line, and they've got some big bodies there, and then Davis just looks so much bigger than everyone else. Big number 99 there at nose tackle. I do have to say I'm a little lower than on Jordan Davis than other people. I've seen him in a lot of first-round mocks, but I have actually a mid to late second-round grade on Jordan Davis because as dominant as he is against the run, he's got extreme power to discard the offensive lineman and make the tackle in a phone booth. I just don't think he has much pass rushing value at the next level. He actually comes off the field on most third and long situations, those clear passing downs. And as good as he is a mover for his size, in general, he's just not that athletic to be able to get to the quarterback, in my opinion. I just don't think that at that size he can really have that much of an impact. He can maybe push the pocket a little bit because of how strong he is, but I really don't. I think he's purely a run-stuffing nose tackle. He can be extremely good at doing that, especially if he refines his handwork consistently back and shed. But I don't see that much pass rush ability in Jordan Davis's profile, which is why I have such a late grade on him compared to consensus.
I mean, I'll push back a little bit with that. I think he is a decent pass rusher. I don't think I have an early second on him. Like you said, probably a little bit lower than consensus. He's definitely super fun to watch and to scout just because of how well he moves for his size. But I think he's just extremely powerful, and he dominates one-on-ones. I mean, you'll see him just drive guys 5 yards backwards. And I did see him get after the quarterback at times. He shows great effort to chase down the quarterback. And he can get his hands on them and bring them down. So I don't think he should be taken off on every third down play. I think he's definitely going to need some breaks just because, that's usually what happens with these big defensive linemen. They do need to be taken off the field at times. But I did see his ability to chase down even running backs. I mean, if they were the gap over, he would be able to break through the line and sometimes tackle them from behind. I was very impressed with how he could move, and I was expecting no pass rush ability at all from him, and I think he does show some. So that's, again, because he will probably have to be taken off the field at times. That's why I can't really give him that first-round grade. But a high second for me is really what I see from Jordan Davis.
I actually have a higher grade on Devontae Wyatt, his teammate at defensive tackle, because I think that Wyatt might not be quite as dominant against the run. I still think he's really good against the run. He's got great size, and he stacks and sheds really consistently. And I think Wyatt has a lot more pass rush impact. With that athleticism that he has, I think he's a superior athlete to Jordan Davis. He can both get pocket push or he can get around his blocker. I think that if you were to really coach him up with his pass rush technique, he could really be a good defensive tackle who brings a lot of pass rush value at the next level, which is why I have a mid-second round grade on Devontae Wyatt. He might really be the most underrated player on this Georgia defense. And this is a Georgia defense with a lot of underrated players, because I'll drop a nugget from Jim Nagy, the Senior Bowl director, who obviously has a lot of connections at NFL sources. He says that some teams actually don't have Nakobe Dean as the highest rated Georgia linebacker and have either Channing Tindall or Quay Walker ahead of him. And I wouldn't go that far, but if you watch the tape, Tindall and Walker are flying around the field making plays too. And I think they end up being NFL starters, which we still have a couple of these guys to talk about. I think this front seven might legitimately have 6, maybe even 7 NFL starters at the next level, which is just unreal.
Yeah, it's insane to think about. And getting back to Wyatt for a second, I do agree that he's definitely underrated. I think, where he is in consensus big boards right now, I think he's like the 50s or the 60s. I would definitely have him higher than that. I think easily top 45 for me. I think right in that probably 40 to 45 range when it's all said and done. One note that I took down was that he has crazy fast hands. I don't think he has all the technique in regards to pass rushing ability with his hand fighting yet, but he shows extremely fast hands. He gets him up right on the offensive lineman almost as quick as he could possibly get him up there, and he can swipe offensive linemen's hands away extremely quickly. So I think he shows a ton of potential in his hand fighting technique and pass rush ability.
Yeah, and on the defensive line, they have another guy that actually has a second-round grade for me. So that makes 3 guys with second-round grades. That's Trayvon Walker. I don't really think he has much bend to get around the outside shoulder of his blocker, but I really like his size, his strength, his speed. He really converts speed to power. He can get inside his blocker's chest and drive him back. I think if you coach up that pass rush technique, you can get a really good player out of Trayvon Walker, even if you won't really be bending the edge consistently in the NFL.
Yeah, and I mean, Georgia has so many other NFL prospects, and we can just run down a list of guys that we won't have time to talk about right now. But George Pickens.
I think we should talk a little bit about George Pickens, because I think he's a guy that's really just coming off that ACL tear. We only didn't see him play much in limited snaps in those 2 games that he's had this season against Georgia Tech and Alabama. But with about 3 weeks of rest, could we be seeing George Pickens at almost full health and back to what he usually does in January in these bowl games, is absolutely dominate? I think that's one of the biggest storylines and things to watch for Friday is how healthy is George Pickens and how much of an impact can he have, because that can really he can really be an X factor, because when he's on his game, he can absolutely dominate. Really great at the catch point.
Yeah, and like you said, he tore his ACL. That was in March, and we've seen plenty of players come back from ACLs in 8-9 months, and George Pickens will be at that 10-month mark, where we see pretty much all players, unless they have a setback, are pretty much ready to go. So it'll definitely be interesting to see, like you said, with those 3 weeks of rest for George Pickens, it'll be interesting to see if he can take over the game on offense.
Yeah, and as you said, there's a lot more prospects. I mean, guys like Lewis Seen and Darian Kendrick in the secondary can be NFL starters too. But I think it's time to roll into these predictions. We've kept people waiting long enough. Alex, I'm going to start with you. Alabama, Cincinnati. What's your pick and why?
I mean, I think you have to go with Alabama. I think they're too talented on both sides of the ball. I mean, it's Alabama versus a non-Power 5 school. As much as I love Cincinnati, and I would love to see Cincinnati somehow pull off an upset. That would just be, one of the biggest upsets in the college football playoffs. In the college football playoff history, if Cincinnati beats Alabama. But I got to go with Alabama. Again, they just have more talent at every other position than Cincinnati. But I do think it will be a little bit closer than people think. I think Cincinnati will be coming in super motivated. Everyone's been saying for the past 2-3 years that Cincinnati does not belong in the college football playoffs. They kind of got in because other teams lost. And I think they'll be going out for blood, going to prove themselves. And I think Luke Fickell will have them ready to play Alabama.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that we definitely shouldn't underestimate Cincinnati. They've been such a good team for 2 years now. At the same time, I got to go Alabama. I really do think that they're a more talented team on both sides of the ball. Might not be like a 20, 30-point blowout. I think it'll end up being maybe a 2-score win. We're looking at a 17-ish point margin is what I would expect. I just do think that Alabama is the better team. And then I'll give you my prediction for Georgia, Michigan. I mean, I went back and forth on this one. I think these are 2 really good teams, and I ended up going with Georgia. I'll give you the main reason is that I think that looking at how Michigan got here, and specifically with that huge crucial win against Ohio State, they absolutely mauled Ohio State's front seven, and their offensive line played great. Hassan Haskins had a huge day. Now, I don't think you can do that to Georgia. Georgia's front seven is one of the best I've ever seen in college football. I think that they'll win that battle of the trenches against Michigan's offensive line, as good as Michigan's O-line is, and I think they're gonna almost take away the run from Michigan and make Michigan beat them in the air. And I think that Michigan's passing offense is kind of limited. I don't think Cade McNamara is going to beat you with his arm. And so as much as I think that Georgia's offense might have some struggles against Michigan's tough defense too, and it's going to end up being kind of a low-scoring game compared to what we're used to in college football, I think that Georgia's defense shutting down Michigan's offense will happen to a greater extent because of how well they match up with them with that dominant front seven.
Yeah, this is a game that I also went back and forth with, and I wanted to pick Michigan. I just thought it'd be fun. They came into the season unranked, but I also have to go with Georgia. And in addition to what you said, I just think they have more talent than Michigan does at overall. I think we mentioned all those guys on that Georgia defense, and Michigan has a few guys as well, but Georgia just has so many more. And I mean, George Pickens, we mentioned him earlier. He could definitely be an X factor if he's ready to go and, can break that game open for Georgia. And go ahead.
It's really close too, though, because at the same time, I don't think that Georgia offense can contain that pass rush from Michigan. I think that Ojaba and Hutchinson could be in that backfield all day. It's going to be close. I see reason for both front sevens of those defenses to dominate this game. So that's why I went back and forth. But in the end, I'm gonna stick to my guns and go Georgia here. But man, I would absolutely not rule out Michigan. For me, that this is almost 50-50, but I'm going with Georgia.
And now, who do you see winning the national championship game?
Oh man, I haven't even thought about that one much yet. I think that I'll give a better answer once I really attentively watch these two games. But if I were to go with it right now, I got to go Alabama. As much as I love that Georgia defense, I think Alabama showed that they really built to beat them because they do have that explosive passing offense to win through the air. Jameson Williams is going to – I think he can outplay everyone in that Georgia secondary. And I think it would be if it was an Alabama-Georgia rematch, I think it would be a lot closer than the first time they played. But I think Alabama still has what it takes to beat Georgia, and they match up well against them.
I'm going to take Georgia. Today, I'm taking Georgia. With the team that Georgia has, the talent they have, and I think Kirby Smart's done a really good job with Georgia. I don't think they're going to lose twice to Alabama. I think if they get in the national championship game and they're playing Alabama, I think they'll beat them. I think it'll be close, but I think Georgia will be playing angry because Alabama took away that SEC championship game from them. And I think, they'll be playing angry. And they took away an undefeated season from Georgia too, right? So, yeah. I think Georgia will come in angry. That defense will be flying around the field. And I'm just feeling what would be a Georgia upset if those two do end up playing. I'll take Georgia today.
It's clear that it's going to be a fascinating college football playoff. And just before we get off the air, I want to preview something we have coming up in 2 days. We've landed an interview with UAB pass rusher Alex Wright, who declared for the 2022 NFL draft. So we're going to be asking him about his football journey, about his game, how he's preparing for the NFL draft. That's going to be Thursday at 12:30 Eastern. So make sure to tune into that. And obviously enjoy the college football playoff on Friday. It's going to be a good one.
Yeah, and thanks for listening. We'll be back with another episode on Thursday.